gonna have a brand new show tonight with glitz and glam on the marquee. Perhaps a Tony nominee. Stars beam brightly, see them glow. Sell out nightly, SRO. It's time to applaud the Broadway Beat. Stars beam brightly, see them glow in the spotlights of a show. Life is sweet on the world's most famous street.
Tickets, please.
Take a seat
Cue the band.
and tap your feet to the rhythm of the Broadway Beat. The Broadway Beat. Broadway Beat.
Hello, I'm Richard Ridge, and welcome to Broadway Beat, our weekly half-hour behind-the-scenes look at the very best of the New York theater on Broadway and beyond. This week we take a look at two new plays. We'll chat with renowned film stars Julianne Moore and Bill Nye, who are appearing in the world premiere of David Hare's The Vertical Hour, which has just opened at the Music Box Theater. But let's start things off at the opening night celebration for Voyage, which is part one of The Coast of Utopia, Tom Stoppard's 8-hour marathon trilogy about 19th century Russia, directed by Tony Award winner Jack O'Brien. It is just opened to magnificent reviews at Lincoln Center's Vivian Beaumont Theater. We'll visit with the company led by Richard Easton, Ethan Hawke, Brian F. O'Byrne, and Martha Plimpton. The second part of the trilogy, entitled Shipwreck, opens December 21st, and the third part, Salvage, opens on February 15th. Here's a look at Voyage, part one of The Coast of Utopia.
Role in the first one is a guy called Stankiewicz, who is the head of the Philosophy Circle, and he sort of works from the neck up and not the neck down. He doesn't understand romance or love, and he understands matters of the head much more. So he's sort of fumbling in the romance department. And in the second play, it's great because I get to play this guy George Herveg, who is very much from the waist down. He understands how to operate, and he's a romantic poet, revolutionary, and winds up having an affair with the lead character's wife. And then the third play, I play a nihilist. So who doesn't believe in anything, doesn't operate from any place.
Talk about what this journey's been like for you with working on this.
It's very interesting because I worked with Tom and Jack a bunch of years ago on Invention of Love, so coming back to work with them has been a treat. I think that was 5 years ago, and I think we've all grown a lot. I mean, surprisingly so, and it's just great to work with friends again.
I can't compare it to anything else. Usually when you do a job, you can sort of say like, oh, this, you have some sort of roadmap of experience in which to gauge it. And this is unlike anything I've ever done before. Most of my stuff is in the third play, which I haven't read yet, but I hear it's really good. So I'm looking forward to that.
Really? So talk about the role that you play.
I play Nicholas Agaryov, who was a poet and one of the first socialists in Russia. I love my character. He was one of the few guys that he came from wealth, and his family had many serfs, and he actually gave it all away. He gave his estates away to the serfs, and he lost one in a marriage too. He wasn't very good with money, but he just had he had good intentions. Yeah.
Is there a secret to figuring out how to play Stoppard?
Yeah, I hope so. I haven't figured out what it is yet, but if you find out, let me know. Yeah.
You were so good at it.
Thank you.
Well, talk about the role that you play and the journey he takes.
Well, I'm playing Michael Bakunin, who is kind of famous character in the Russian lore of politics and ideology. Sometimes gets credit for being the first anarchist. But it's really just a fascinating human being. And I had never heard of him before I read the play, and I was completely intrigued when I read the play. And the more I find out about him, the more remarkable I find he is. Just there aren't two of him in the legacy of the human race. You know, he's a really unique person.
Can you tell us what happens to him in the second and third plays?
Well, he discovers revolution. You know, the first play is really about the Russia before it gets changed. And it seems to me at this moment that the play is really about history. It's not about one person. It's about the way ideas affect a whole generation and how a generation moves. And so the first play, Voyage, is them discovering and becoming adults and discovering ideas. And then the next plays are about them putting those ideas into action.
I've got to go home.
Has something happened?
Agriculture.
What do you mean, agriculture?
That's what I said. Stankiewicz has been in Berlin for months, sitting at the feet of the professor there, who was Hegel's actual pupil. And my father says he'll agree to pay my debts if I study agriculture.
Why agriculture?
Apparently, Pamukino is an agricultural business. You thought it was just there, didn't you? An aesthetic fact of nature, like a bluebell, only much bigger.
No, I didn't.
Well, I did.
Well, no, I don't find him daunting. I mean, I've done one of his plays before, well, two of his plays before, and I don't quite understand what all the fuss is about. I mean, it seems to me it's all about families and daughters and son and all that, and no, I love it. I mean, I just think it's fun to do.
Talk about the role that you play and the journey he takes in the show, please.
Well, it's so interesting because it's unlike other Stoppard parts in that it changes so dramatically. I mean, he begins full of stuff and running everything, and then suddenly at the climactic moment when the eldest daughter doesn't marry the Baron, he starts to sort of thing, and for the rest of the play, he's all a series of kind of collapses. He goes blind, and he goes finally. And then that wonderful thing in the end when he's sort of delirious. And
now, can I ask you what happens to you in the second and third plays?
the second play, I'm dead now, of course. But in the second play, I have a wonderful part. At the end of the second half, I play a kind of crazed Russian consul in Nice, who's very overexcited and keeps leaping to his feet every time the Tsar is mentioned. And he comes to tell Herzen that he's got to go back. And Herzen says, of course I'm not going back, don't be ridiculous. And he says, but you can't do that, the Tsar has ordered you to go back. So he's a sort of hysteric, and it's a very funny scene. And the last play is rather wonderful. He's a wonderful kind of rather sad Polish emigre, which is the end of the story when all the sort of aristocratic or intellectuals who became revolutionaries are totally discredited by the real revolutionaries. And they all are rather sort of drab and kind of fading away. But it's wonderful stuff. I mean,
can I ask you what the best part of this journey has been with working on this whole process?
well, doing this play, I mean, because it's a sort of gift for an actor too, as I say, because it changes so extremely from the beginning. This is all to the kind of pathetic end. It's just wonderful.
We're kind of all on a path to February, so it's odd. It's like, we have an opening, but it's not. It's just the beginning. So it's like, okay, we've done this. We're going into tech on Wednesday. So I'm kind of thinking about that more than anything else. So it's like, it's great that we have a party, and it's good that we've launched it. I mean, that's nice to get that out of the way.
You're still in the car and you haven't gotten to your destination yet.
Oh gosh, we've a long way. We've just started the journey. We're not even sure of the journey. We haven't mapped out where we're going yet, in a lot of ways, because we haven't, and we won't know that until the third one. We won't really know what we're aiming for.
Well, talk about the role that you play in this first one, and then what happens to you in the second and third.
Well, what happens? It's too long to say what happens.
Talk about who you play.
Well, I play Alexander Herzen, who's a writer. Gosh, I don't know how to describe him. Like kind of almost the father of Russian socialism.
and he is introduced in this play, and then becomes kind of center stage in the next two plays, where everybody goes and ends up in Europe, and then ultimately ends up in London. We all live and move to Paris and Italy in the next play, and then end up in London. So he is the person who facilitates everybody. He has the house where everybody arrives, and all the debates, everything happens within Herzen's home, and he's kind of the leader of this group in some ways. Himself and Olgariev, the poet, end up creating the I guess for a better word, magazine called The Bell, that then creates such political change at home in Russia. Afterwards, even though they're in exile, they never get to go home.
You remember Songorov? They sent him to the mines and confiscated his property. This property consisted of 700 souls. What is wrong with this picture? Nothing. It's Russia. A landowner's estate is measured not in acres, but in adult male serfs. What a country. Napoleon had to drag us into Europe before our embarrassment at ourselves put seditious thoughts of reform into the heads of the returning army officers.
I play Varenka Bakunin, who is Michael Bakunin's sister, one of his 4 sisters in the play. Of course, he had many other sisters in real life, but Michael played by Ethan Hawke, and she is one of the sort of more level-headed, earthy kind of women in the play, and she's convinced by Michael to leave her husband, which of course at the time was a very radical, strange thing to do. She was very forward for her time in that sense, but they're all women who are very educated and sort of, looking for an ideal life, an ideal sort of romantic life, which is, there's this discussion of the inner and outer worlds in the play, and the women sort of occupy the inner world and the men the outer world. So that's sort of in a nutshell who she is. A little bit.
Good at that.
Well, I don't know.
Just talk about the journey of what it's been like working on this with this great ensemble cast, and Tom Stoppard and Jack O'Brien.
It has been the joy of my life. It's been one of the greatest experiences, if not the greatest experience I've ever had. Everyone, Jack, Tom, everyone in the company, it's become, we've become such a close family. We love each other deeply. We rely on each other. It's one of the most extraordinary things I've ever been a part of. I don't think I could ask to be in a better situation. I'm just so proud to be working with all these people. They're all incredible and wonderful people. There's not a jerk in the whole bunch. It's great. We're very lucky.
I thought I'd be writing about Herzen and Belinsky, and then reading everything, I began to see that there was a play before the play about the Bakunin family, and I got really interested by them, and also that was really a good chance to try to write one's own Chekhovian play, an irresistible temptation. So the play which you saw yourself really was a sort of strange thing to happen for me, because it was like writing a play in order to get to the play I intended to write.
When did it all come together for you? When were they all complete?
Literally, when I was writing this in around about, I think I finished in 2001. I was writing in 2000. I was working on it from 1997, so it took about 4 years. Not writing, but getting ready to write.
And what do you think of this wonderful cast in New York?
Well, what can I say? I mean, what a bunch of people, hey? Yeah, it's an honor to be in the same theater with them.
I'm sorry. There, my lamb. I'm sorry for all the things I said. Nicholas will come back. You'll be well, and he'll marry you. I know he will.
Film stars Julianne Moore and Bill Nye are making their Broadway debut in David Hare's new play, The Vertical Hour, which is just opened at the Music Box Theater. It is directed by Academy Award winner Sam Mendes. Also making his Broadway debut is Andrew Scott. We caught up with all of them at their recent opening night celebration. In the Vertical Hour, Hare spins the tale of an American television journalist and academic who travels abroad and finds herself caught in an emotional charged romantic triangle pulled between the affections of her lover and lover's father.
If you're interested, I was quite clear about why I supported it. I've also been clear about what's gone wrong, and I don't think the mess that's followed invalidates the original decision. I've always supported humane intervention in countries where terrible things are happening. I believe in it with all my heart. I was a reporter before I was an academic. I've been in these places. I've seen suffering at ground level. I've been present in situations in which the West did nothing, and I've seen the results of our indifference. So, if you want me to pass my evening defending the right of Western countries to use their muscle to free Arabs from systematic murder, then believe me, I am up for it.
I'm sure you are.
Well, great. It was a fantastic performance. And I think we've been running for 3 weeks. We've had 3 weeks of fantastic audiences and everything that I associate with Broadway, namely, you put on a serious play and a serious audience comes, and that's always been my experience.
Well, take me back to the beginning. How did this play come about for you?
It came about really in 2003. I was in America a lot, and the run-up to the war, and I was myself against the war, but I was rather interested in the position of pro-war liberals, those anguished, intelligent, clever, humane people who supported the idea of ending the suffering in Iraq. And I respected their arguments, and I respected what they had to say, and I wanted to look at those people 3 years on, and that's the character of Julianne Moore plays Nadia Bly in the play.
And talk about the process of working with Sam Mendes on this play.
Well, Sam is a joy. We worked together before on the Blue Room, which was more of a phenomenon than a play. It just became this insane publicity rampage, which neither of us could really control, was completely out of control. And so I'd always wanted to work with him again. And so when he stole the play from the producer's office and said, I want to direct this, it was great for me because he's the calmest. It's very rare to work with a director who's not a neurotic. He's not a neurotic. He's calm. And he's obviously one of the best directors of actors around.
And talk about this wonderful cast.
The cast, Julianne, because she's the preeminent actress in America of her generation. Andrew Scott, who plays the son, we found in Dublin, where he's a admired player, particularly at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. And then Bill Nye, who's played my work for 27 years. And I think this is the 6th time we've worked together, and he's just a consummate player of my work.
Talk about what you love about New York audiences.
Oh, concentration, and the fact that they take it seriously as if it's real, and they respond to what's going on as if it's actually happening. And so there's an immediacy. English audiences tend to rather sit back. They tend to assimilate it. That doesn't mean I don't like them. I do like them. But they're one step back from it. Whereas an American audience gets itself right in it. And they're very good judges. You know, when you're not good, they're bored. And when you're very good, they respond. And so this is, I think, my 10th play on Broadway. So I love it there.
Well, I love that. To me, that was always rather a daring thing, and I loved how daring that was, that we were bringing a new play about current politics, about Iraq, about the state of the world, about whether to engage or not to engage, and playing it to 1,000 people a night right in the center of the greatest city in the world. You know, I mean, it seems to me to be what plays should be about. You know, it's a public forum. It's exciting. You know, people are going to love it or they're going to hate it. There's going to be debate. There's going to be discussion. That's what theatre should be, you know, and I think that, you know, sometimes it's worth taking that risk. If actors of the caliber of Julianne Moore and Bill Nye are willing to take it, then you should go for it. You know, we could easily have done it down in the public or, you know, somewhere where it was a little bit less dangerous, you know, but this appealed to me. I think it's worth it, you know, it's worth taking the risk, and I think people have come out, and you can feel the response in the house, the excitement when they realise within 5 minutes of the play starting that it's about now, you know. I mean, and there's nothing like that excitement in a theatre. It's not a revival. It'd be the easiest thing in the world for us to do another production of Long Day's Journey into Night, you know. But this is something else, and its excitement is very particular to being a new play, and also to being a new play by a Brit. You know, I've been amazed at how much laughter there's been from the Americans at the anti-American sentiments expressed by Bill Nye in the play. You know, there's a kind of delight, almost a relief to be able to laugh at how America has been perceived in the world over the last 2 years. You know, but then there's also a good deal of anti-English stuff in it as well, which I also think is greeted with warm applause. So it's very interesting watching the debate happen in the audience.
And talk about the dynamics of his cast you put together.
Well, they're a lovely bunch of people. I couldn't have had a nicer time with them as individuals. What I love, though, is that Bill is all flamboyance, and he's very theatrical, and he's very experienced in the theatre, and Julianne is very contained and mysterious and minimal and cool, and I love the counterpoint of the two. I've always loved that, and then we've got Andrew Scott, who's the third of the big three in the big three roles in the play, and Andrew is a wonderful young British actor who holds his own with both of them, and gives something entirely accessible and youthful and funny and vibrant into the mix. So it's been really a pleasure.
But my guess is that Nadia Bly isn't someone who easily tolerates weakness. She doesn't like it. Am I right? Anyone who announces that psychology is a load of rubbish, well, you choose to call that attitude refreshing. I think a better word for it might be dangerous. That's all I'm saying.
You've said enough.
Take one look at her. She's someone who'd have very little trouble attracting any man on campus.
So
my guess is she's picked you out because you appear to be strong. Well, then be strong. Why disappoint her? As our government instructs us, be alert but not alarmed.
Well, on first reading the play, I found it enormously difficult to get a grasp on what the play, what the character rather was about, because it's always more difficult to play characters that are kind of listeners, and trying to make that active is sometimes very, very difficult. But I was attracted to it because the writing is so good, and it was intriguing, and I kind of think I didn't really know on first glance what I would do with it, and that's always a good thing, when you think, how the hell would I do that? And also the caliber of the people that were working on it, with Sam and David Hare's plays, and Bill and Julianne. It's you think in New York, why the hell not?
And just talk about the joys of doing a David Hare play and saying these great words.
Yeah, there is I think it's really difficult with David's plays. Initially, I think you have to get the rhythms of the words right, and I think you have to sort of know it really well. And I think once you do, it's sort of like any great playwright. Once you grasp it, I think your job is actually not to add too much to it yourself. I think you just have to trust the words and make sure that you're telling the story properly.
I love David Hare's work. It's true, I've done a great deal of it since we were both young. We've worked together. I've worked with David more than I've worked with anybody else. I admire him tremendously. There are very few writers in the world, or people in the world, that I admire as much as I admire David Hare. I think he's an incredibly beautiful and wonderful and powerful and brilliant writer, and I also think he's a very important man. I think if there wasn't a David Hare, we would be in serious trouble in terms of the theatre, and I think, and from my point of view, they are great roles. He writes world-class jokes. There are some of the best jokes in town. I've been very grateful to deliver a few of them over the years. He balances the public and the personal themes beautifully and very successfully. Everything is given equal respect. If you're waiting for somebody to come on in a David Hare play and tell you how to think, then you have to go to you're going to be disappointed. You have to go to a less sophisticated playwright for that. Everyone gets a good tune. Everyone gets a shout. Both sides of the argument are beautifully and elegantly and funnily expressed. It's a great part. I get to wear great trousers and a cool shirt, and I get to work opposite Julianne Moore. I can't see what's wrong with that.
And when did it all come together for you? Was it during the rehearsal process, when the audience was put in, during the preview period? When did you say, I've got it?
Well, I haven't said that quite yet, but during the previews, really. You do it differently here, as I say, and you have lots of previews, and they are kind of like public rehearsals, and they were extremely useful, and particularly for a new play, obviously, because you don't know where anything's going to happen, and you don't know where the jokes are. Well, you know where the jokes are, but you don't know quite where the laughs are. And the first preview, for instance, we went out and it was a minefield because there were laughs all over the place, like all over the evening, which should come as no surprise, but you just have to learn how to, orchestrate it as best you can. And I guess when we got the audience in the end, I know this sounds kind of pony, but the audience are the most important ingredient, finally. Without the audience, you don't really know how a play will work. So I guess somewhere during the previews, I figured, well, as soon as we did the first preview, I always knew it was a beautiful play. I didn't know how it was going to work I didn't know it was going to work quite as tremendously successfully as it does.
There were nights so cold, so pitted, with a trace of machine gun fire. I didn't know concrete could have so many holes and still stand, like lattice work. There were bodies, every shape, every color, bodies rotting in the woods, on building sites, ceaseless, pointless violence ditting in your head until you thought you would scream.
Really excited, happy, it was kind of a heavy week for us because it was press week and opening night and stuff, so I'm kind of delighted to be here to sort of relax and celebrate.
Talk about the joys of saying the words and doing a David Hare play.
It's an extraordinary play. It really is. It's such beautiful language and very important ideas. I think ideas that are really moving people, which is what's exciting. We went out the other night and there were two women behind us who just come from the play and they were crying, and we were sort of thrilled, that it's affecting people on that level.
Because you're in a very small house, you really feel how the audience is feeling, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do.
And talk about the process, this rehearsal process of working with David Hare there and your director Sam Mendes.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're both they're incredibly talented, gifted people. The play was very, very dense. It was interesting to kind of work on a brand new play. Because there was so much. There was so much that we did, I think, even just in terms of its construction. We kind of moved things around and changed things, and David was sort of very open, and we were all sort of very anxious to just sort of unfurl the play. It was really about that.
And talk about the wonderful ensemble you get to play with.
But I couldn't be happier, actually, with the actors that I'm working with. They're so, Bill Nye and Andrew Scott, Dan Bittner and Rutina Wesley, so talented, so wonderful. We're all making our Broadway debuts at the same time, which is kind of extraordinary. And we've been lucky because we all get along so very well.
Because it's Christmas, not a time to be alone with memories. Christmas is supposed to be a happy holiday. Throw a little joy my way. Do we really have to stay? Throw a little joy my way. Because it's Christmas, just a perfect night for us to dance and sing. Christmas is supposed to be a happy holiday. Happy holiday.